Hi and welcome to this final part of this series where we're going to talk about the tools, techniques and different ideas of how we can start to break down the ego and step into our true self. What we can really utilize to get us into these spaces and away from the old egoic mind. So to start off with, I want to talk to you about meditation. Now, I know for a lot of people, they're going to go, ugh, meditation. I've tried it. I don't like it. I find it hard, difficult. I want to tell you that everyone can meditate. It's something that everyone can do, but ultimately what we don't realize is that whenever we step into meditation, especially if we're starting it for the first time, we come up against our own selves. We come up against the ego. We come up against everything, our thoughts, our ideas, everything that wants to be processed, everything that doesn't want to be processed in the eyes of the ego comes up for us to do the work on. And ultimately that work is detachment, to step away from realizing, to step away from the idea that the thought is your own, that everything that comes up is your own stuff that you have to go through. It's so important to realize, and everyone can meditate. And even if you just give yourself that space to meditate for 5 minutes a day, and then work up to 10 minutes a day. Hopefully the mic is okay for you guys. And what I want to do is actually just go over a couple of meditative practices that we can utilize to start to break down the ego and start to focus on self-realization. Now, the first one that I wanted to step into the practice of is a simple meditative practice, which would be following the breath. Now, the important thing to understand before we go into this is that in meditation itself, as I understand it, is allowing us to come into self-realization of the true self, of God, of all that is. That is what it is, and revealing and letting go of the false self. That is all that meditation is, to what I believe. And during a meditative practice, I always struggle to say that word, what we have to do is we have to use a point of focus, if you will. And that is what a large majority of meditations come down to in their differences, is the way in which they utilize their point of focus. So if you think of the idea of your true self being the consciousness of all that is, the present awareness of all that is, we then have the mind, which is on top of it. Now, the mind, you can say, is of two states: the natural mind and the unconscious egoic mind. And that unhealthy relationship versus the healthy natural state of the mind is what we are playing against the true self, the self-awareness of all that is, the present moment, the space of the now. And when we are in that process of realizing, or trying in quotation marks, trying to realize the true self, we are battling against the false self. Okay? And so the point of focus that we have during this can utilize the mind to create a point of focus. But beyond that, it is allowing ourselves to let go of everything else that arises, letting go of the thoughts, letting go of any traumatic patterns, any emotions that want to release, detaching ourselves detaching ourselves from the story of what is there that is coming up, because that is what allows us to naturally release the emotions, the old patterns, the traumas, the wounds, whatever name you want to call it. That's what allows them to be released, because ultimately that's what we're holding in our body. Okay, and we hold this through the connection between our emotional selves and the thoughts, and basically the thoughts that are connected through past experiences. So a past experience that we can go through can leave a traumatic imprint, and at that time you might not have been able to emotionally process the situation, and you would have connected certain thoughts and created an imprint where those emotions and those thoughts can be locked together. And over time, as they compound through different but similar experiences, those, I really hope that the mic is okay, those similar experiences, they might have different thoughts that come up, but the emotions that are attached to them through the root experience of the trauma, so to speak. So this can all get released through the body, and ultimately we have to get past the thought patterns. We have to get past the story that comes up to be able to get deeper into the physical and the emotional aspects of your body. And the emotional aspects of your body can, over time, leave those imprints physically in you, because you are holding yourself in that space. You are holding yourself unconsciously in a way that allows you to not process those emotions. So over time, it can leave that physical imprint. So we want to be able to allow that space to release what is physically coming up through detachment and awareness of what is coming up, to then allow the space for those more natural emotions to also come up, to be released, irregardless of the story. So then that is why there is the importance of that point of focus during meditations, because it allows us the space to dance between the mind and the true self, the false self and the true self of all that is. And when we can allow ourselves to utilize that part of the only part of the mind which is using that point of focus, which for this exercise following the breath is the breath, then we can start to detach and witness what isn't true for us, and ultimately step into the space of what is eternally true. So, following the breath, basically this meditation is all about allowing ourselves to connect with a certain point on the breath. Now this would be as we perceive the breath. So whether it is the breath leaving our mouth and the sensations that are leaving our mouth or our nose if we're breathing out through our nose, or whether it is the rising and falling of your chest, whether it is the air that is going down the back of your throat, the expansion of your abdomen, it doesn't matter. Or even if it's more of connecting through your imagination to the inhalation of the breath. This is all a different way in which we can utilize that point of focus, and you can experiment with it over time. Now, once you have the point of focus, then all I want you to do is give yourself about 15 minutes to be able to do this, and you can expand it over time, you can shorten it, no less than 10 minutes, but give yourself this space and ultimately find a space in which you know you're not going to be disturbed, there won't be loud noises around you, and you can come into a sense of safety. Okay, this is important with all exercises that we want to do that are allowing us to expand our space of self-realization and the spiritual work that we undertake. Because we are dancing between the spiritual and the material, the physical and the energetic. So find that space, give yourself the time, and perhaps it's not essential, it's optional, but you can even have a way to record your experience for afterwards. Now, it is definitely preferred for you to be sitting during the meditation, but obviously work with what is best for you. Try and push your boundaries physically, but not to the point that it's going to take away from the experience. So, for example, if you have a lazy posture and you're aware of having a lazy posture, then perhaps just test yourself by just allowing that space in your mind, just to have that subtle awareness of your posture. It's just so that it will help you in the long run as you develop. It works a lot connecting the spiritual and the physical as well. So once you've come into your space, I want you to just close your eyes and relax, holding that space. Don't relax your body entirely, but relax, okay? And once you close your eyes, I just want you to take a nice deep breath, and then just allow the outer breath to last just a little bit longer than the inner breath. And I want you to repeat that breath 3 times, and each time you exhale, I want you to start to relax your body even more. Even if that is just becoming aware of your body in the space. Okay? And just for the 3 breaths, on the out breath, which is slightly longer than the in breath, just start to relax your body. And just feel any point of tension start to drift away. And after those 3 breaths, I want you to continue that same cycle of breathing slightly deeper than your normal breathing rhythm and having a longer out breath. And as you do, just allow yourself to bring your attention to what is going on in your inner world, okay? And what's going on in your body as well. And just continue to bring that space of awareness to what is present in the body. And you might start to notice more tension and more places of tension throughout specific points in your body. So just give yourself a couple of minutes and just breathe through this space, okay? And just allow that tension to dissipate through the body. It's okay after a couple of minutes that tension is still present, because that ultimately means that there is a lot of stuff that we need to work through. So this is the point where I want to take you to your breath. Once you've found your point of awareness, I want you to, the point on the breath, I want you to just follow the rhythm of the breath. You can even start to regulate your breath to a more normal breathing pattern for yourself. But ultimately, if you know or you struggle with finding a breathing pattern, then I want to encourage you to count 4 points in, 4 points out. Breathing in for 4, breathing out for 4. Breathing in for 4, breathing out for 4. This will start to help regulate your breath. And as you go through this meditation, you might find that your breath naturally starts to slow down, which is perfectly fine. It just means that your attention and your awareness is ultimately slowing down in your brainwave state, okay? This is a good thing, as long as we keep that point of focus. So as we start to follow into this rhythm, just keep your attention on that point of breath that you have found. And allow everything else from the day just to fall away. Everything else from the day just to fall away. Every time a thought arises, just witness it and allow it to fall away without attaching to the story of it. And ultimately, the more you allow yourself to stay in that point of focus with the breath, the less this gives you a space to detach from what arises. And this is how we can ultimately let go. This is the key of having that point of awareness. It allows us to detach naturally from what is arising and to keep that focus on the breath. Our breath is that access point to our spirit. In Latin, I believe the breath is called spiritus. I believe that is. I'll have to double check that. But you can see how that is linked to the idea of it is connecting us from the material to the spiritual. So just follow with that process, and when something arises, perhaps that you have those points of tension in your body and you start to feel them increase, and just allow yourself to just follow that breath once again and just witness them and allow it to fall away. It may naturally increase until the point that it can dissipate and reveal what is potentially underneath, which would be more of the raw emotions. And just allow yourself to follow the breath and utilize, I was about to say use, I changed to utilize the breath to move through that experience. Ultimately, when we go through points of trauma in our lives, when we're in that experience, we can really catch our breath through the experience of what is unfolding, and that can imprint and overlay into the specific experiences that are stuck within us. So it's important to recognize that if you start to feel your breath tightening, shortening, or becoming more erratic and unsynchronized, then just recognize that this is perhaps part of your trauma that is wanting to come out, surface, and be released. And allow yourself to consciously expand and breathe through this in as much as a coherent way as possible. So carry on this process with the point of focus that you found on the breath and the recognition of detachment and witnessing your experience as it unfolds. It is natural for you to want to, the more you are attached to the story and the experience of what is coming up, the more you can go into a state of, not panic as such, but any point of anxiety, panic, or other form of which is unreleased expression is only there because of the attachment to the story as it is wanting to play out. So just follow the process, and it may be good for you to put a timer on your phone and just allow it to play out for 10 to 15 minutes. And once this is finished, just allow yourself to start again with those 3 deeper breaths and longer exhales. And again, just allow yourself to relax into your body. You can do this for longer than 3 breaths, and it might be good just to carry on until you feel comfortable and regulated in your body again. But ultimately, when you're in that space of detachment, there will only be a dysregulation for as long as you have that attachment. So your ability to re-regulate or regulate your body will come naturally to you as long as you follow that breathing cycle. And just after the breathing and after you're coming back into your own awareness of your body, of where you are sitting in this safe space, just naturally allow yourself to open your eyes and come back into the space. And that is following the breath. Now, the next 2 exercises I'm going to speak about in a shorter way, but I can perhaps do longer videos in the future about them. But what I've explained in the process of following the breath, you can take across to these exercises. So the next one is walking in awareness. And what this essentially is the act of walking or moving through the space that you are in, whether this is out in nature, which is what I would encourage you to do, or if you don't have that accessibility, then just walking around the space that you do have access to, and just allowing your point of focus. Now, your point of focus can be on a couple of different things in this. Again, it could be located to the breath, and it can also be located within a detached view to your experience itself as it is unfolding. Now, you can choose a particular sense for this. You could choose visually to use a point of focus. You could choose audibly to have a point of focus. It could be all of your senses together. But ultimately what it is we are allowing ourselves to navigate through the space that we have chosen, and to become and stay detached to the experience of what is unfolding. This allows us to come into the space of awareness, okay, which is what ultimately following the breath would do. But also following the breath is good for allowing you to release old emotions and traumas that are stuck in the body. But walking in awareness allows us to come into that space of the present moment, which gives you access to what we would call your true self and the space of all that is. Now, you can utilize both the experience, the detached experience as it unfolds, and the breath together as your points of focus to be able to walk and navigate through the experience, because ultimately these are going to anchor you. They're going to anchor you in the physical as you allow the experience to unfold. And you might be surprised by what does unfold and what you start to experience naturally. But it is essential, again, that you allow yourself to stay detached from what is unfolding. You know, what may come across from spirit will naturally stay with you after the experience is done. So that is the walking in awareness. Give yourself perhaps half an hour to experience this. And as you do, once again, thoughts are going to arise, different ways for your ego and the false self are going to want to come back in to take control of what is going on. And this just gives you that space to practice the detachment to what is false. Every time you recognize a reaction in your body, just note it and note that that is the false self coming up. And yes, you might have an identity to it. And it is just this space that will give us that point of separation for us to be able to recognize what is the ego and what is the true self. Beyond that, we have what I would say is consciously dissolving your story. A day of consciously dissolving your story. Now, this is close to walking in awareness, but the difference here, sorry, I just dropped my, the difference here is that you're not necessarily detaching yourself from the entire experience as it is playing out. What you are naturally detaching yourself to is your own story, your own thoughts as they arise throughout the day. It is allowing yourself to come into that space of witnessing without judging, and just allowing the experience to come forwards, to go about your day in a natural way, as natural as possible, but just having that sense of awareness, creating the intention to consciously navigate your day whilst becoming aware of your unconscious patterns. That is the intention that you can create. You can change it to your own, but just becoming consciously aware of your unconscious patterns and allowing yourself to navigate the day in this respect. And so this means that you can go about your day. And this is essentially, this is a practice for life. This isn't just a meditative practice, but this is a practice that you can use day in, day out. So I'm being a bit cheeky in terms of putting it in a meditative practice, but meditative it is. It is allowing us to come back into the space of our true self and reveal, dissolve what is the egoic false self. Sorry, it's a lovely butterfly. So just allow yourself to navigate the day naturally, and when patterns start to arise, just become aware of them. And if you become reactive and you become unconscious and caught in your own story, because you've set that intention, and the stronger the intention, the more will that you put into this space, the more you can start to the more you will start to remember and come back into that space of, oh wow, I've just spent the last 2 hours being unconscious when I said I was going to spend this day being conscious and aware of what was playing out. It's so easy to do. So the more we start to practice this, the more we can start to see things come up in our lives. So those are the 3 practices that I would suggest for you at this moment that will help us break that separation between what is false and what is true. So now I wanted to briefly go over some points that will be good for you to remember throughout this process of your unfolding experience, and to help you get away from what is false and into what is true. It seems like I'm repeating the same points here. The first one is, know that your thoughts are not your own. I know I've said this in the last 2 videos, but it's so important. Your thoughts are not your own. And if you cannot create the separation from understanding that your thoughts are not your own, when you say, I love that tree, that thought is not your own. It is not your true self that is speaking this. It is the false egoic self. You may have feelings and opinions about the tree in particular, but they are only a projection of the experience that is unfolding for you. The next one is that know that you are largely living in your false self. Throughout your day, you are allowing unconscious patterns to play out. You are allowing yourself to be subject to your own projections inwardly and externally of yourself and other people and the environment that you are perceiving. The third one is, know that unconscious reactions are patterns and traumatic wounds linked to your stories. Know that unconscious reactions are patterns and unconscious wounds are linked to your stories. Okay? So these are all experiences in the past that you have created an identity through. And it's important for us to realize this, to be able to navigate through our lives and to do the work necessary to heal ourselves. And healing, in what I believe to be true, is actually only the word healing, and to heal is only true in the space of the egoic self, in the space of the identity that we have created. Because the true self is not, isn't hurt. The true self isn't wounded. So it is only that journey that we have to go from the false egoic self, the identity that we have created, to the true self, which is the healing process. But ultimately our true self is not wounded, does not suffer the trauma. The true self is the truth of all that is. Now, know that the mind can be put into a healthy balance, but the unhealthy egoic self has to dissolve. Our mind, as I said before, has these two states, is what I would say, which is the mind, as Muji would say, and I'm sure others would say, is the natural mind, okay? And this is the point in which we create identity, we create form to navigate the material existence. That is perfectly healthy. And what I'm saying when I'm talking about the egoic false self is not to say that everything in our experience is we must dissolve everything. We must dissolve everything and forget this material world that we find around us. No, that is far from what I'm saying. And actually maybe I'm seeing now that that's perhaps what it sounds like I'm saying. But ultimately, so for example, going back to the point of our name, when we recognize that our name is given to us and that we create identity around it, we can actually start to dissolve the false projections that we have created around our name and get back to the truth of what we have been given in this world, in this form, which is a sense of natural identity through the form of a name, which holds energetic space, and the energy of your name has power. So it's important for us to get back to our natural mind as opposed to the false, unhealthy, disformed, irregular, traumatized self of the ego, okay? Now, know that the universe is energetic in nature. Consciousness creates the material existence, okay? So everything that we perceive, and I've said this before, everything that we perceive is not, it is a dream, okay? It is an energetic construct which comes about in the form of the material existence that we see around us. But also know that our perception defines our reality. And collectively and individually, we create our reality, our material reality around us. This is important to know for us to be able to start to break down some of these barriers. Know that time is a necessary illusion for navigating reality, but all we truly have is the now moment. So time, as we understand it, okay, is a human existence and a human narrative and a human. I lost my place when that lovely gentleman just passed. Time is a construct. That's a better word. There we are. It is a human construct that we have created, but it is necessary again for us to navigate this existence to a point. It allows us to be able to get to our appointments in time. It allows us to meet people for a coffee, you name it. But beyond this, what we have to understand is that our eternally present moment, the now moment, is here for us to experience and step into the awareness of who we are. Beyond that is the idea and the projection of the past and the future is where we can get caught in our traumatic experiences once again. Anxiety, depression, you name it, it is all linked. It is all us projecting into the future or projecting away into the past, or the perceived past and the perceived future. Now, beyond this, know that your true self is ever present. It never leaves, as it just is. But your ego is the cloud that sits around it, obscuring it. Okay? So your true self is eternally present. The ego is just like these apparitions that we have to dissolve. And ultimately, the more we allow ourselves to dissolve, the more that we start to open up our experiences and open up our reality to greater depths and greater realizations and greater ways in which we can perceive what is here to be perceived in our material and spiritual existence from the human divine form. So there's a couple of tips that I'm going to leave you with, and then we're going to finish there. I know it's a long video. Thank you very much for those that have made it through it and got this far. If you haven't watched the previous two videos, then you will find them at the end of the video, or hopefully if I remember, I'll put them up as cards in the above point of the video for you. So 3 tips. Take your attention into your body, away from the mind, and into stillness. This is a practice in and of itself, okay? So what we find is when we're in our mind, we naturally project. We project inwardly and we project externally into the perceived reality around us. When we allow ourselves to take that attention that we are projecting inwardly and outwardly, and we take it into our body, we can allow ourselves to become aware of what is eternally present and also what is there that wants to be processed and released. This is, like I said, this is a practice in and of itself, one that is important to utilize, and you can again use this as a meditative practice. But understand that the more we can start to take our attention away from our mind and into our body, into our hearts, into our heart space, then that is where we can start to break more of the egoic hold that it has on us. Once again, a lovely butterfly. I was hoping it was coming across on the camera, but obviously not. Second tip, focus on finding the space between what is, the space between words, the space between your sense perception, the space between your active experience. Now, as you may have just heard the bell there, as you may hear the cars going on, as you may hear the crows, they're not actually crows, they might be annoyed that I called them crows, as you might hear all of what is actively going on, or maybe the mic is doing a fantastic job, I don't know. But if you allow yourself, using a meditative practice, or just coming into the space, giving yourself time to become aware of your own experience that is unfolding. Eckhart Tolle is very good. He goes into this a lot. But if you allow yourself the space to find the space that sits between words, that sits between the senses as they unfold, then you can start to become aware of the eternal presence that is all around you and within. This is a practice in which you can utilize and to become aware and start to point towards what the true self is and the ever-present moment of the now. And finally, I can put this away now. Finally, create a daily practice. Okay, so this is something that I'm going to speak more about in the future, but I want you to think about creating a daily practice that involves a meditative practice, a creative practice, and a physical embodiment practice. That doesn't mean it has to be 3 separate practices, but it could be you can have a meditative practice which is creative in nature and is also physically embodying. It could be one practice, but ultimately, I will go into this more, but 2 practices will be really beneficial for you to develop your mind, your body, and your spirit, to start to become more balanced in nature and start to see the truth of your reality. So thank you very much for making it this far in the video. I know it's a long process, it's 40 minutes now. I will be bringing out my own community platform, which is going to go dive deep into the creating of a daily practice. And beyond that, it is also navigating our way towards our true self, dissolving the ego and helping us dissolve and heal the traumas that are apparent in our body. The community platform will go above and beyond this, but that is what I see as it is unfolding in the future. I have also just finished my book, which is called The Psychic and the Self, which is a psychic and self-development guide that will allow you to start to weave and navigate your way towards realizing your psychic abilities, but also recognizing the importance of the work that we need to do to develop and realize the true self, and how that in and of itself will help us expand our psychic awareness and our natural gifts. So thank you, have a beautiful day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.